Elite Dangerous is a game that's about, there's combat in it, so it can be a combat game if that's what you want out of it, but it's also a space exploration game. It's about trading, it's about building up this economy, it's about, you can go out and, you know, pick up these bounty quests, you can assassinate people, and it's much more, I don't know if nuanced is the right word, but it's much more layered than just combat. And I actually got to play it with an Oculus Rift, and that game is complex. And I was like nervously kind of like shaking at the thought of undocking from the space station and getting through the space lock alive with this crazy Cytec X52 joystick rig I was using with a million buttons that I couldn't see because I had an Oculus Rift on my face. Yeah, and the Oculus Rift adds so much immersion because you're in this cockpit, and if you're in a dogfight, and instead of relying on the little mini map on the screen here, you can actually like glance upward and behind you and see that there's an enemy this way, so you kind of got to flip around and go after them like that.
Dawngate, well, it's a MOBA from it's being published by EA, and I actually had quite a long conversation with the lead developer on the game. They're obviously wanting to get into that space, but they're trying to make a game that's, you know, different to the existing MOBA stuff. Something that's going to appeal to them in a different way, i.e. it's more accessible. That's looking interesting, an accessible MOBA. We'll see. Oh, and it's free to play, so, you know, at least you can just go try it, right? And as good is good.
Yeah, we saw that Battlecry trailer a couple of weeks ago. Looks all pretty and stuff. It's got Victor Antonov from Half-Life 2 fame. It's cool. It's like a big old collaboration between a bunch of real talented people. It's free to play, so there's always that, which has, I don't know, kind of always has a little stain on whatever game is coming out. But it kind of looks like, imagine if Team Fortress was third person and had like only melee combat, because they've outlawed gunpowder in this world. They have it playable on the show floor, but it's pretty early days. But yeah, it looks like something to look out for, if only for the fact that the people who are involved in that game have a lot of big games behind them. So kind of trust them to do it right.
Yeah, so we got to see one of the developers of Hotline Miami make a level on the fly of Hotline Miami 2, and it's super easy. It's almost like Mario Maker in that regard, where it's just like he laid out a couple of boxes which became, you know, rooms eventually, put doors and dropped in furniture and refrigerators and stuff, and then put down people, and then in like a snap he could jump down into the level and start playing. And then, oh, that wasn't good, so he zoomed back out and then he tweaked it around. I mean, it looks super simple, and the reason they're putting it in Hotline Miami 2 is this is the last ever Hotline Miami. So they want the community to be able to do whatever they want going forward.
I got a chance to play Grey Goo, which had me very excited because I had seen it at GDC and it made an impression then, and it made an impression this time as well. It's a strategy title coming from Petroglyph. You know, they've made Star Wars Empire at War, Universe at War, and this game is in the same vein, but what makes it interesting is one of the factions is the Grey Goo. And if you know science fiction, then you know that the Grey Goo is basically nanobots that just take over and turn everything into just one giant mush. So and the Grey Goo is essentially a faction in which you don't have a base, and everything starts with this big glob of goo that you can command around to collect resources, and then eventually split it off into more types of goo that in and of themselves can turn into different types of units. So if you're into rushing, or if you're into just getting into play right away and staying on the offensive, the Grey Goo faction is the way to go. There are two other factions as well, the Beta and the Humans, but I only played the Grey Goo today, and I'm glad I did because it was pretty unique.
Lich Battle Mage is this game. I think the reason why it exists is actually maybe one of the most endearing things about it. This guy, Michael McMain, he used to work in like software in this. I don't think he wants me to tell me. He wants me to tell you exactly where. He had a company that made software, which probably made him a lot of money. And he basically took all the engineers that worked on that stuff, got a load of game dev dudes, and he's a big like RPG fan who's only ever plays Mage. So he basically took all these dudes from his company and all these game developers and went, I want to make a fucking game where mages are just OP. And that's Lich Battle Mage. It is literally a game where you are a mage who has 0 cooldown. It uses the CryEngine, so it looks friggin' gorgeous. But it's out pretty soon, and It's like, what I like about Lichdom is it's just, the only reason that game exists is that a bunch of people love mages. Like, he loves mages, he's got the money to make a game about mages, people on the internet like mages, they're into it, so it's like this just this big like orgy of people with massive mage hard-ons. I love it.
So I got to play some Dreadnought, which is a game coming from Jaeger, the people that made Spec Ops: The Line. And it's a free-to-play space action game, a multiplayer game. And what makes it a little bit different from most space combat games is that you control giant ships. You know, that's where the name Dreadnought comes from. You're not rushing through space in a strike cruiser. You're taking things slow and steady in a giant battleship type of situation. And it was really fun. You get different skills that you can use, different types of ships. There is a corvette and support ships, and also giant battleships, and of course the Dreadnought, which is in the title of the game. And it was a lot of fun. We actually played 2 team deathmatches, and I got crushed the first time, and we won the second. So it was just super, super good. Something more than I was expecting.
I saw The Sims 4, which is bizarre, if I would describe it in one word. So it's basically about fleshing out the characters of the Sims and their personality traits, but it seems to manifest itself in very kind of quirky and eccentric ways. So, like, they started the demo, and there was this man Sim who had gotten into a heated altercation earlier in the day, and he just couldn't let it go, and it was just, the anger was boiling up inside him. And because he had the bro personality trait, he decided to work off his anger by doing rage sit-ups. So here he is in this public park, just working off the anger by doing sit-ups and just grunting and shouting to himself. And that was like the first minute of a 30-minute demo.
One of the games that I saw here at E3 2014 was H1Z1. It is Sony Online Entertainment's sort of DayZ clone, I guess. They're trying to distance themselves from DayZ a bit by having crafting elements in the game, but it feels, and it also runs on the PlanetSide 2 engine, so it definitely looks a lot better than DayZ. So it's shaping up pretty good. You can drive vehicles, you can go scavenge and find guns, shoot other players, chop down trees, build houses. Permadeath is still a thing. They mentioned potentially clans at some point in the future, so.
I gotta say, one of my favorite PC games was actually Hex Shards of Fate, and it's super, super complex. And I don't know that I understood every little detail that was described while I watched, but some of the things that are really interesting about it is it's sort of a combination of an MMO and a trading card game, and one of the things that you can do in Hex is do raids with other people, and what that involves is basically you and several other players against like a single AI boss. And that whole idea sounds really cool. I mean, it has, that kind of thing has been done before, but it seems like the MMO part of this game is going to be really important. It's going to have this, you know, big single-player campaign in which you will actually deal with cards that you don't get anywhere else, and art that you don't see anywhere else. So it's all of the trading card games in one. Plus it's got these really interesting things where cards will actually morph depending on certain circumstances. So you might have a card that represents an imprisoned person, and then based on certain circumstances, you might free that prisoner, and then it becomes a liberated person, and so the card actually changes depending on circumstances in game, and that kind of stuff just really intrigues me. It looks super, super complex. You can even slot in gems into cards to make one individual card very, very different from other people's version of that card, giving it attributes all its own. So all in all, I've got to say, I'm really intrigued by Hex Shards of Fate, and while I suspect it might be a little over my head, I'm really looking forward to trying it out.